Let's turn the time over to Jeff Silvestrini. Thank you.
Well, if I may, just a few introductory
sorry.
moments. I have my standard spiel that I give you guys every time. So remember, we have all this information online. We video record all this. So this is currently being, well, will be recorded once I hit it on Zoom. But the previous meetings are all up there. You can go back and look at those if you desire to figure out what we've been saying and how it's been going. As Mark suggested, we've got two presenters. We're going to cut it off at about 7 so that the mayor can hit the road and get back down to Millcreek, and then we'll pick up with Sheriff Arbon after that. So a little bit about the mayor. I'll let him introduce himself. But more to the point, a little bit about Millcreek. So it's about the 12th largest city in Utah, population 62,000. And its form of government, as some of you recall, we did this at our last meeting. What forms of government should we include or consider? They are a 5-member council, mayor elected at large. So that's different than what we're proposing, but just so you know, that's how they were, their government is set up. The incorporation, they actually went through 2 attempts. The first attempt actually failed in 2012. 3 years later, it passed. And then, as I've told you in previous meetings, you go through the process of voting for incorporation, but you have to wait another year before you can vote in your leadership. So that happened in 16. And at that time is when you officially become certified as a city. So we would vote for it this year, and if it passes, we would vote in our leadership in 25 and get certified as a city in 25. And that's the end of my little presentation, so I will turn it over to the mayor, and we will let him give us his talk.
Can I ask a question? So if we decide to become a city, in that year interim, is there a way to put an injunction on the county making big decisions in the valley?
That's a great question, and I don't know the answer yet, but you and I will think about it.
Because they could really screw us over in a year period of time.
There is a statute that you can request a moratorium. The moratoriums last for 6 months and would have to be reconsidered. So there is that avenue to be pursued, but we'll cross that bridge once we get past this election.
Okay. Thank you.
Kevin, just to have everybody know, we know each other, and we're going to raise our hands, but I'm going to ask them, how many of you would like us to pursue a moratorium after the election? About half of them. We'll see how this goes come November. Okay, thanks, Kevin. Come sit by me if you want.
So in response to that, one thing I can say, and this is no guarantee, but in our experience in Millcreek, once we actually voted to incorporate, our county government took a completely different attitude toward us than they had before. And they were trying to engage with us and they wanted us to contract for services that they provided. So they were a lot nicer to us maybe than they were before. There was that shift in attitude. So anyway, my name is Jeff Silvestrini. I'm actually in my 3rd term as mayor of Millcreek. I'm my 7th year of being mayor. My first term was 3 years, and that's because when you do this process, like Nick explained, you elect a mayor and council, and you have to get on the municipal election schedule. So the set terms are staggered, and my first term was 3 years rather than 4, and we had 2 council members who were elected to 1-year terms, and they had to run again. The reason for that is so that we got on the municipal election schedule, and then after that we had 4-year terms. So I had a 3-year term, ran again. Wasn't going to do it again, but got talked into it by my city staff, and believe, of all people, my wife. I said, what are you going to do? What do you think you're going to do if you don't run again? You like it, and I'm not sure I want you hanging around here. Anyway, so the city of Millcreek, you guys know where Millcreek is? Any idea? Okay, so our city is immediately south of Salt Lake City. It runs from the mountains, from Parley's Canyon, Millcreek Canyon, Olympus Cove, down to the Mount Olympus Trailhead, which is in Salt Lake County, is about 54th south. So on the east branch, all that, and then we run west to the Jordan River. And then we have a really crazy boundary because we are kind of the land that is left over after various annexations and incorporations. One of the reasons that we ultimately, there are residents voted for incorporation, one among many, is that we were tired of having all of our commercial tax base get annexed into other communities. And we felt that in order to kind of preserve our community, we needed to freeze the boundaries. And we had arguments on that issue in our county for years before we incorporated. We had townships that were supposed to freeze the boundaries that didn't really work. Anyway, we voted, as mentioned, twice. First election, it failed 2-1. And then the second election, it won 2-1. And a lot of that's just a function of people, like, I think, becoming more educated about what the benefits might be. We were governed in Salt Lake County. We have a county council. So there are 9 members of our county council plus a county mayor. It's different than the Weber County Commission of 3 people. But in Salt Lake County has like 1.2 million people living in it. And each of those county council, there are 3 of them that were at large for the whole county, and then 6 of them that represent districts. But each one of those county council districts that were our city government, if you will, represented about 180,000 people. So that's 3 times the size of our city. And what that really meant is that it was very common for our county council representative to not live in our community, not really know what was going on in our community, which streets needed to be paved and things like that. And when you talk about accountability to the voters, if everybody in Millcreek voted against somebody, we could be outvoted still by 2-1 because we're only 1/3 of that constituency. So what we started seeing, and I don't know if you feel this way, but we started feeling that our county government, while I think there was goodwill there trying to represent our area, they were also representing unincorporated areas in out west in Salt Lake County, in Magna and Kearns, and farther south with White City, Granite. There were other unincorporated areas in our county, and they were trying to serve everybody, but these communities were actually pretty different. So a lot of the argument in favor of incorporation in our case was to have more local control, and to have people that you would see at church or the grocery store represent the city, and have people that knew, I know which streets in my community need to be repaved. Okay, it's not a mystery to me. I know the issues, and I know a lot of the people, and I think we do a better job being closer to the people. So one of the arguments we had against incorporating was we don't need an extra layer of government. This is just going to cost us more money, and we're not going to get anything in return for it. Well, I tell you what, and I don't know this. I don't know the circumstance in Weber County the same way I did in Salt Lake County. But what I knew from volunteering as a community council representative for a long time in the Mount Olympus Community Council, we had three different communities, really, or 4 actually, combined to become our city. But I knew that we were still paying for that government. It was just residing at 21st South and State in the Salt Lake County complex rather than in our community. We were still paying for engineers. We were still paying for planners. We were still paying for somebody to administer the townships. We were still paying for finance. And what I learned more and more is that we're still paying for rent at the county complex and a lot of overhead. Okay. And I can tell you in our case, we had a feasibility study done to determine whether we would be viable and to try to look at what our revenues were. What we found after we incorporated is our revenues, that study was very conservative. Our revenues exceeded what they were forecasting, and we have been solvent and actually have accumulated what's called a fund balance, which is a rainy day fund, right? It's extra money that we don't spend as a city government, and we save it up. We can use it for bigger projects, and we could use it in case there were a downturn in the economy. We could, ride it out a little bit easier. Or if we have an emergency repair, in our community, we have storm sewers that blow up in our community all the time. And there are emergency repairs that have to be fixed right now. You got to pay to do that. So we have a 35% rainy day fund. Okay, that means that 35% of our budget, of that amount, is in the public treasurer investment fund savings account, earning interest. So that's like just a backstop in case we have something we don't anticipate. And we've been able to build that up in 7 years, okay? Which goes to show that study was conservative. We have enough revenue. Your communities are maybe different, because different sales tax, a lot of what cities run on is sales tax. Question.
So you were paying an unincorporated services fund?
Yeah, so we were paying a tax, a property tax called to the Salt Lake County Municipal Services Fund, okay? And that paid for some of the services that we were providing. We were also paying property taxes to the Salt Lake Valley Law Enforcement Service Area, which was a special district that funded our police, okay? And we were served by the Salt Lake County Sheriff, and that became the Unified Police Department. We've had a little turmoil there. The Salt Lake County Sheriff is separated out of that. We still have the Unified Police Department, but we essentially, when we became a city, we contracted for law enforcement. And I know, Sheriff, you can talk about this. I think we've had conversations before, but communities in Weber County can contract with the Weber County Sheriff to provide law enforcement services. So, you get a bill for that, but you're paying for that right now anyway, somewhat, right? Same thing, we're in a special district for fire, okay? And we still are in that special district. We got out of the police district. We now assess our own property tax in Millcreek, and 100% of that property tax goes to pay for policing. Our residents pay a separate property tax to the Unified Fire Service Area, which is a special district that pays for our fire. We belong to the Unified Fire Department, which is probably serves more residents in Utah than any other fire department. It's like 250,000 people that gets fire service. They serve communities in Salt Lake County. They also serve Eagle Mountain, which is in Utah County. Question.
So you were in the same fire district with the same tax before and after incorporation?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Question.
When you had your feasibility study done by the state,
It's done by a contractor, done by Science Bank.
so yeah, what did they estimate in their conservative study that your surplus was going to be?
So they told us that we were, and this is going back a while, but they told us that we basically had about a 5% cushion, that we were viable plus or minus 5%. And it wasn't a lot.
And it actually became what?
It's actually probably, based upon their numbers, closer to 10. Okay.
So you haven't had to raise taxes at all since you've been in office?
We have had to raise taxes. So we raised our property taxes 2 times. We raised them 4.7% the first time, and then 2.7% the second time. Okay, and the reason that we had to raise taxes is because the cost of policing went up. And a couple of years ago, there was a feeding frenzy in police salaries in our state. Okay, we had to raise in order to be competitive. Let me say this: I think we have a really good police department, one of the best in the state, and it's become ever increasingly hard to recruit new officers to come to work in policing. And a lot of that is a function of the social climate with George Floyd and how hard it is to be a cop. Okay. And people don't always respect cops the way maybe we did when I was a kid. So it's, the profession is not attracting as many applicants as it was before. And also there were people changing musical chairs when other departments raised salaries. So in order to compete with that, the salaries that are being offered by other departments and not lose our highly trained officers, because if any of you ever run a business, you know that the most valuable asset you have is your employees, and that the most expensive thing that can happen to you as a business is to have high turnover. Okay, and the same thing is true in government, the same thing is true in law enforcement. So we had to raise our salaries 40%. We had to pay our cops 40% more. So we had to figure out how we were going to pay for that. And in Millcreek, we use property taxes 100% to pay for cops. So we were able to because of the way we were managing them, we had some, when you levy a tax to pay for something, you're estimating what the bill is going to be. You levy enough tax to pay for the bill. We had a little surplus, and we were able to absorb that cost increase with those two tax increases. So long answer to your question, but yes, we have, but not because we became a city. We didn't have to raise taxes because of that. So I have a bunch of questions here, so I'm going to take the.
So,
Yes.
well, that means 7 years, total of 6%.
Yes, 4.7 plus 2.7 is 7.4%.
So in the same time, do you know what the Salt Lake County raised their property?
That was my question.
What? So Salt Lake County raised they have we pay a general fund tax in Salt Lake County that pays for mental health services and aging services, county rec centers, a bunch of stuff, regional stuff. Their taxes have gone up a lot more than ours have. Okay. Yeah.
I was just gonna say, is that pretty consistent with baseline where you've been before? It wasn't like no taxes were ever raised and you became a city and then you had to raise them. I mean, taxes will always go up. And so.
Yeah, I mean.
It wasn't out of line with what had been happening.
Yeah, raising, some of you might be elected officials someday, right? Raising taxes is like the hardest thing to do, right? It's never popular, okay? And you're concerned about people on fixed incomes and the impact of that. We pay the taxes too. But costs have gone up. I mean, costs in our country with the inflation that we've had is affected all of our pocketbooks. It's at the grocery store, and people would say, like, my grocery store has gone up and I haven't gotten a raise and don't raise my taxes. But you know what? You still want your street paved. You still want your garbage picked up. You still want all these things. And we're having to pay people more to do that. And the cost of fuel for us has gone up. The cost of materials for asphalt and all that has gone up. So we don't have a choice sometimes. There's only so much you can cut. And then when you start getting people complaining about, why are the parks browned out this summer? Why aren't, because we're trying to save money on water that costs a lot of money and we're having a drought. So we did that, right? But it was unpopular with a lot of our residents because they count on those parks, and there's an argument that public green space is different than my lawn, right? But anyway, when you cut something, somebody's always going to scream. Okay. So I think you had a question.
That was the same question.
Okay.
Do you have any feel for, so you got 62,000 residents, right? Do
Right.
you have any feel for how happy those 62,000 people are?
Well,
What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts?
I ran for election. There were 9 candidates when I first ran, and we had a primary, and then I won the general. The second election, I had an opponent. I got 75% of the vote. And then in November, nobody ran against me. So I tell people, I told Mark this, and I'm copying because another Mayor Cottonwood Heights said this first, but I'm the best mayor that Millcreek has ever had. Also the worst mayor.
Questions around revenues. What percentage of sales tax contribute, or what does sales tax contribute to the general fund.
Okay,
And what are the big drivers of sales tax?
okay. So, and different communities are different, and sales tax is a product of two things. One, the point of sale. So, I mean, if you have a lot of retail businesses in your community, you get half of the sales tax comes from the point of sale. The other half is based upon population, okay? So in Millcreek, our sales tax are probably about, and I'm guessing on this because I have to look at the budget, but I would guess that sales taxes are about 60 to 65% of our revenue. And so cities run on sales tax, we run on property tax, on sales tax, and then we also collect fees for things. We charge our residents a stormwater fee because our stormwater system is 60 years old and is failing. We have to do that. And then we charge fees for building permits. We charge fees for plan reviews, various little things like that. Sales tax is the biggest thing that we run on. And we use the sales tax to basically pay for the things that aren't police, right? So animal services, right? Animal control, maintaining our parks, and running the city government with respect to a building department, planning. So there's planners that help people design projects and do subdivisions. There is a building official and his inspectors that go out and make sure that buildings are built according to the plan so that they're safe. And then we have an engineering department as well that designs our public improvement projects. A lot of that we send out in contracts, but we do design some of our own road things and some of our projects in-house. Anyway, those are the services that city governments provide. You know, there's trash collection, things like
My
that.
follow-up is what's contributing to most sales tax?
Okay.
Do you have an auto mall? Do you have a lot of restaurants? Like, where's that all?
So we're lucky in Oakland, we got pretty solid sales tax base. It's mostly grocery stores. We have 7 grocery stores in Millcreek, including a Super Walmart and two Smiths, two what are they called, Macy's now, and Sprouts and a couple of other smaller ones. We also have a Super Walmart, as I mentioned. We have a Home Depot. We have REI. We have a couple of big. We are going to be getting our one and only new car dealership that's being built right now, and we don't have a lot of room for stuff like that in Millcreek. Okay, if you know Millcreek, it's a built-out city. It's weird because Millcreek was the first place that was settled outside of Utah Fort. They built mills on Millcreek they took timber out of Millcreek Canyon to build Salt Lake City. They had mills to saw lumber and grind, flour, and there were 7 mills along Millcreek at one point. And so settled in 1847, 48, right after the pioneers got here, never incorporated. But we have hardly any brownfield, greenfield development space. The kind of growth that we're having is infill, where somebody's taking a larger lot and subdividing, or a couple of lots and subdividing it. And then there's redevelopment. And if you've been to Millcreek, we have a bunch of redevelopment pressure in what we call in our city center, where we just built a city hall there, and on the west side of our city. So one of the things I want to talk about is like the cost of government. Okay. When we first incorporated, and if you guys do this, you'll do the same thing. Right? So when this interim period between, if you vote to incorporate, then you have to wait a year to elect a mayor and council. During that time, your services will continue to be provided by Weaver County the same way they are now. Okay. And then what we did, and what I'd recommend you do, is when we found out who the candidates for office were going to be, we kind of said, holy cow, this is kind of scary to start a city up, right? And we need to learn about this. So we invited everybody who was a candidate for office for all the council seats and the mayor seats. So there were about 35 of us, and we started meeting as a transition committee. And we invited everybody in because we figured we got all the factions in this way. We had people that were running for office that didn't want to incorporate, were against it, people that were running them in favor of it, the whole spectrum. And so we started sitting down and meeting, and the first thing we did is come up with a list of the things that we needed to do. And our list had, I think like about 115 things on it, okay? From getting a tax ID number to, I don't know what all of them were. There's paperwork that needs to be filed with the state, which is called a notice of boundary adjustment of all things. And you have to file that before you get your certificate of incorporation from the lieutenant governor. And that has to be filed with the state and recorded and all that before you can start collecting tax revenue, sales tax. Or the state also distributes gas tax money. It's called B and C road funds. So you get a check from the state, which is a refund of the gas money to help maintain your municipal roads. There'll still be county roads probably that the county would maintain. State highways the state maintains, but there'll be local streets that you'll be, in charge of maintaining. So you get some money for that. So anyway, we did that transition. We didn't know who was going to be elected. And then after the election for the mayor and council, after the canvass, the election is certified, then the mayor and council actually are authorized under state law to start meeting and actually start passing ordinances. Okay, so city councils work by either voting on an ordinance, which is a law, or a resolution, which is a guideline or it's a decision, but it doesn't have the force of law. So when you get elected and you can start working, okay? And we worked to draft all the documents that we needed to file with the state. We went through, we started with the county ordinances, all the things that govern planning, zoning, animal control, like leash laws and things like that govern animals in your community. We took our county ordinances and we pretty much did a word search, and any place that said county, we put city. Okay. And we didn't change a lot right at the beginning because it's overwhelming what you have to do. But every community is going to want to change those things over time. We changed a lot of our zoning ordinance. Our zoning ordinance had not been updated by our county in some cases in like 60 years. So we had zones that allowed for rendering plants and the kinds of things that we really didn't want to have in our city anymore that may have had a place at one time. So we adopted the county ordinance wholesale, and then we started picking it apart, and we're still doing that. Okay, 7 years later, we're still doing that. That's a work in progress. But the thing that was nice about it is by bringing everybody into the tent, all those candidates into the tent, and starting to work as a transition committee, we built some unity there. I think we built some trust so that even people that were concerned that we were going to fall off a cliff if we incorporated, kind of got the feeling that, hey, working together, we can do this. And then the other thing I'll say is that if your incorporation passes, I won't say they're locusts that descend upon you, but some of them are nice people. But you will find that there will be consultants that will approach you to ask if they can help you. So we had engineering companies come and say, we'd like to help you out in terms of making sure that one of the things you do when you incorporate is you check and make sure that the state has a correct list of all of your sales tax outlets. So, if there's a store, a market, a gas station, anything that might generate sales tax, you want to make sure that the state knows that that's in your city. It's not in the county or in some other city anymore. We found sales tax outlets that were paying sales tax into Salt Lake City, even though they were never in Salt Lake City because it's close to the border's close, right? So that's one of the things that you do is you check that. But we had a guy who is still our city attorney, who had set up the city of Taylorsville, the city of Holiday, the city of Cottonwood Heights. And he came to us and said that he would volunteer his services to help us get set up. And he said, I would hope that when you get some revenue that you'll pay me back for what doing, but, I, I'm really volunteering. He's so good that we hired him as our city attorney. He's still there, right? So you'll find people that will come that they have self-interest, right? They would like to get a job, but they will donate time and stuff to help you get started in areas where your council may not have expertise. Question.
Yes, three quick questions, if I may, please.
Sure.
First, you still have the county assessing your real estate values, and you have the county tax, and you have no control over how they do their assessments, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
That's true for every state,
Right.
for every county. I mean,
The second.
that's what counties do.
Have you, in that 1 year, where let's say we will win in the election in November, and then we have 1 year to get our government in place. In that 1 year, is there any way to create a moratorium so that you don't have the county coming in and rezoning as they see fit?
So you may know more about this than I do, because we never had to ask for that. I would think, okay, that the county council would have to, or the county commission would have to pass that moratorium, because there's no legislative body until you get your mayor and council elected, right? There's nobody that's really in charge. And I'll tell you, on this transitional committee, we did have residents who were against incorporation saying, what the heck do you think you guys are doing? You don't have any power, you can't do anything. And we just said, we're not doing anything. We are just meeting to figure out what it is we are going to need to do, and to not have a huge steep learning curve when some of us get elected. And the one thing that we do, and we can tell people, is that we know that the universe of candidates who are going to be the mayor and council are in this room, okay? Nobody else is going to be that somebody here is going to be elected. So let's work together and let's not have this be a mess when we get to the end of the thing. Third question.
The third question is, have you had any mandates, I don't know if that's the correct word, from the state about creating affordable housing?
So yes and no. Okay. It isn't a mandate in the strict sense. It's carrots and sticks. The state is concerned about affordable housing, and most recently, the state is concerned about starter homes, having affordable housing for people that are starting out to be able to own a house or a townhome or a condominium. And frankly, all of us should care about that, because these are our kids and our grandkids we're talking about. And if they don't get started by building equity, by owning real estate, then there's going to be a problem for them when they need to retire and they don't have the wealth that we've all built up by owning property. So we want that to happen. That's part of the American dream, right? So what the state has done is, the state has required that every community over a population of 5,000, so I don't know if you hit that or not yet.
We do.
But every community over 5,000 has to file with the state, with the Department of Workforce Services, a moderate income housing plan that addresses different options that you can choose from as a community about how you're going to address affordable housing or moderate income housing. So it's not like deeply affordable housing, it's not a homeless shelter, but it is how you can promote housing that is affordable, 80% average median income, which is like the kind of housing that you'd be able to afford if you were a police officer or a teacher or a firefighter, okay, or maybe a construction worker. But yes, the state does that, and if you do not do that as a community, if you don't have a plan, then you do not get grant money from the state and road funds from the state, okay? So they have tied there's an incentive for you to cooperate with that to get your money. And I'll tell you what, the other thing that and this may go to some of your concerns about sales tax and tax revenue. In my city, we have received grant funding almost to the amount of our entire city budget, okay, each year since we incorporated. And that's been a priority for me as mayor, and is to go out and apply for that grant money and get it. And so grant money is in the form of, Weber County is a member of the Wasatch Front Regional Council, okay? The Wasatch Front Regional Council is a metropolitan planning organization that state and federal road funds get funneled into that from federal and state gas taxes. Apart from the BNC road funds I mentioned earlier, you get those directly without being a grant, but other things like money to improve, US 89, money to improve, major streets, you compete for that with other communities, but you make an application for it and make a case for why this needs to be fixed. And that's how that money gets distributed. Well, that is the money that the state has their finger on the button and says, if you don't have a moderate income housing plan, you are either not eligible for that. And then the harder you work to do more options that the state offers to satisfy that plan requirement, you can actually become preferred for grant money. So I've worked hard to get my city in the position where we have lots of options for that, for moderate income housing, so that we're preferred on the grant money. That means if there's two competing applications, they'll give the money to the community that is trying the hardest on that. So yeah, we are getting pressured on that, but there's a reason for that. We're short 50,000 units of housing in our state right now.
First of all, thank you for taking the time to come educate us and speak with us. I did a little perusing of your city website. Again, I think it's quite good. Thank you. Have information there. In 2022, the city implemented a sales and use tax on natural gas and electricity. Well, the 24-25 budget is going to be almost 10% of all your revenue. But could you educate us on what a use and sales tax is on electricity and natural gas?
Yeah.
Why it was implemented, and does every city in the states implement this sales tax?
So I don't know. I don't know about every city, but I wager that at least 90% of cities in the state levy that. Okay. So one of the things that you want to do when you're a city, okay, you want to have a variety of sources of revenue if you can, right? Because there are some circumstances, like you have an economic downturn and your sales tax may go down, okay? And if you are committed already to be building road projects and things like that, that puts the damper on a lot of other things. So we implemented those taxes because basically every other city in our county has done it. I don't know about Weber County, but I've wagered that any city of any size has done that. So, and what that tax is, it's a 6% tax that gets levied on your power bill, your gas bill. We are talking about, we haven't done it yet on cell phones, but you could do that. It's 2.5 or 3% on cell phones. Anyway, that's what's called a franchise tax or a energy or telecommunications tax. And that is something that pretty much everybody pays. You may not pay it here now, but it's another source of revenue that people in every other community basically are paying that. And it's, utilities are more stable than sales taxes because people are going to, buy gas and electricity even if there's a downturn. Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, again, thanks for spending the time and listening to this important information. I'm curious, you mentioned that you had a city attorney who volunteered, so to speak.
He used to. He doesn't anymore.
Yeah. And I'm curious, as the city is working through your development and updating of your city ordinances, have any of those been challenged, and how much have you had to use your city attorney for various legal challenges to ordinances or other activities that the city is involved in?
So I can. We have had one threat of a challenge to an ordinance that we adopted, and we did a trade. For billboards in our city. And I recused myself because I had my past legal career, I had some connections to the billboard company. And so I just disqualified myself, didn't participate in any of the discussions about this at all, as the council did. So that one was about, we had to take some signs down for a development that we were doing. And then we also wanted to eliminate as many billboards as we could in our community. So we basically made a deal with a sign company to take down 5 billboards, the equivalent of 5 billboards, because there was some square footage that was in reserve that they had under our ordinance we inherited from the county. Long story, I don't want to get in the weeds, but we allowed them 1 digital billboard in exchange for the equivalent of 5 billboards coming down. Two physical billboards came down in Millcreek as a result of that. And then we also negotiated with them that the new billboard is on our campus of our city hall in this park area that we built called Millcreek Common, that has a skate loop and a splash pad in it. And on that digital billboard, the city gets 4 out of every 10 turns on it for city to advertise city things, right? So we put copy up on that. So we got a billboard, we get 44 turns on a billboard. We don't have to pay for, we don't have to maintain, we don't have to pay the electricity for. I mean, my council thought it was a good deal and they voted unanimous for it. I didn't. So what does the city attorney do? So our city attorney is busy full time, and we're a pretty sizable city, but city attorneys draft all the resolutions and the ordinances that the city council passes. So, sometimes there'll be, just an example of a resolution. We will adopt a resolution to approve our contract with the Unified Police Department to provide police services for Millcreek. Okay, so the city attorney reviews the contract with the Unified Police Department for one thing, and is back and forth negotiating that. Okay, and then the city attorney drafts a resolution, which is a document that says it's got a number on it, and it says that the city council authorizes the mayor to sign this agreement with the Unified Police Department. And then the city council votes on that resolution at a council meeting. And then after that, I sign the agreement with the UPD. So that's an example of that. Or the city attorney drafts ordinances. Or what happens is there'll be somebody will come in with a development request, and they might want an exception, or there might be an issue about it. The city attorney will advise our planners about what the city ordinance requires or what state law requires. So there's a lot of work in that, so cities have to comply with the Open Meetings Act, okay, which means that everything we do has to be done in the sunshine. And the city attorney advises on that, and make sure that our agendas list everything that we're going to be doing at a meeting. And various departments will come and talk to the city attorney about stuff. We have situations where we have, one that I've just dealt with in the last couple of days, we have a property that has a dangerous building on it. It's a property where somebody started construction on a new house on a lot, and then I don't know what happened, they ran out of money, but it hasn't been worked on in like a year. And it's starting to deteriorate to the point where our building officials think it's dangerous. So the property owner has not been responsive to us about fixing it. And so we're at a point now where we're gonna file a lawsuit against that property owner and have the city come in and tear the structure down so it's not an attractive nuisance or unsafe. So that's the kind of thing that the city attorney helps with. Here and there.
Me?
You,
okay. I just wanted to make sure there wasn't somebody behind me. So I think you'd probably agree that we're a little different than what you are mayor of now. So what services, I can think of a few just off the top of my head that you probably have to provide them that we wouldn't have to provide. For instance, water is owned by various entities up here. I think there's 68 or 70 entities, so there wouldn't be a city water department, I don't think. Nor would there be a sewer department or anything like that. And so I think it's a little different in that. I just wanted to point that out. And I had a question on the B and C road funds. Are they paid for
The what?
the B and C road funds? Are they paid by the mile? How many
Yes,
miles you
yes.
have?
They're
So-
paid by lane miles, so if you have, I was actually just exploring Huntsville, I was early, it's a beautiful town. But you may get, on your one lane road, you may only get, it's by the lane mile,
Sure.
so if you only have one lane, if you have two lanes, you're gonna get more than if you have one lane.
But it would be fair to say the more city miles you have, the more
Yes,
money you're gonna get for
Yes.
that type of road.
correct.
Okay, and then my last question is, so right now, just as my own property, as an example, I've got a property that the county says is worth $775,000, and my unincorporated services fund portion of my taxes is like $63. So, I'm a simple person, so I'm thinking to myself, if my taxes, my property tax part of things went up 100%, I'm just looking at another $62. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah. So let me address that too. There's a bunch of things that are in that comment that I think it's worth talking about. So my city council and our community are as concerned about the cost of municipal government as I'm sure you are, all right? What we have done in Millcreek, where we can, where it makes sense, is we don't have to reinvent the wheel on things, right? So our county public works department did an excellent job plowing snow in our streets, and that's an issue in Millcreek. We're up on the east bench of the Salt Lake Valley, and our eastern neighborhoods get a lot of snow. Okay, Columbus Cove and places like that, and if it doesn't get plowed, people can't get to work, they can't get out of their houses. We thought the county did a great job on public works. We hired them, okay? We hired them and they still plow our streets. And their crews still do a lot of our actual street maintenance. Now, we have a public works director and an engineering department that tells them what to do. And we negotiated a contract with our county so that we daylighted what we're being billed for. And that's one of my jobs, is to go through that and ask, like, what's this for? What's that for? How many snowplow drivers do we need? 17, okay? And so we negotiate with our county, we pay them on a contract basis to do the same kind of thing they were doing before. The difference is that we have been able to actually scrutinize stuff and ask questions about it that we never would have done before. And we've actually, because they want to keep our business, they have made concessions on a lot of these things where we're not paying some of the overhead. We had in all of the stuff that we're being billed in our municipal services fund and in the contracts that they initially submitted to us, there were these items for, like, it was designated mayor's overhead. Okay, and I said, what is that? What is that for? Because there's a separate thing for the finance, aspect of public works, or we contract with them for animal services and for public works are the two main things. And they couldn't explain some of that stuff. And where the costs were extreme and we felt like we could save money, we took those things in-house. So they only had one planner working for 62,000 people. And the planning to getting a building permit out of our county before we incorporated took way too long. Okay, so we did take the planning in-house, and I don't know if this will be true for you, but it was true for us. What we ended up finding out is that there was a lot of middle management, high salary people that were on the payroll of our county and then when we incorporate, we have our own people. In many cases, at lower salaries because they hadn't been in place for 20 years, where they got raises all the time. But we saved, based upon the contract that the county offered us for planning and for engineering, and we're saving money on that, okay, by doing those things ourselves. But where it made sense to contract with our county to provide services, and public works is a thing where if you want to start a public works department, what do you got to do? Well, the first thing you have to have a yard, okay? You have to have a yard, restore the equipment, all that iron. You got to buy all that iron. okay? So a startup on something like that is hideously expensive, so there's a lot of incentive for us to contract for that. You'll still be able to do that. Your county, they don't want to lay off all those folks, okay? But so if you contract with them, they still provide the service. You just get to pay for it in a more transparent way, I think, that where you get to see it and you get to negotiate about it. And the other thing I like about it too is that there may be some things like, I know that there are other communities in Salt Lake County that contract for snow plowing. Well, they don't need the same kind of level of service that my city needs, okay? I need to make sure if I want people to not run against me for mayor, that our streets are snow plowed, right? And so there are other communities like Taylorsville or Holiday in Salt Lake County that don't need that kind of level of service. They can pay less for that, you know? And then there'll be something else where they might need that we don't want, and we can design what we pay for that. Question.
So this maybe isn't intangible, but I think an important thing. Did you notice any change in the way people participated in the community, going from an unincorporated area to actually being a city, volunteer, involvement in the community?
So that's something that we're working on. There's something point here I want to address because it's asking about this, because we were kind of like 4 neighborhood communities that combined into one. The sense of community that people develop when you are in you have a place that's your town, is incredible, actually. People are supportive of that. They identify with it. They're proud of it. When we started out in our city, we rented really cheap space in a strip mall. Okay, and if you've been to Millcreek, we're like the capital of strip malls. So on 33rd South and 13th East, we rented an old thrift store building. It didn't have any windows except on the front of the building, and the heating and cooling were basically non-existent, except in the men's bathroom. But which is either freezing or roasting, take your choice. But the point of it is, we had people say to us, this is a dump. We want a city hall we can be proud of, right? And that's a different change. And it actually surprised me, because one of the things I was most nervous about is like, they're going to accuse us of building a Taj Mahal. And, the thing of it is that building, serves the city, it serves the community. It will last for, I don't know how many, 50, 100 years, I hope. But, and we financed it at 2% interest over 30 years. So it's not an extreme expense. It's actually great that the fact that we'll be using, people that will be using that building in 25 years will help pay for it rather than all having it front loaded, right? But yes, you build a sense of community that way. So Millcreek was like, this oldest, community with and we had 4 different neighborhoods. We had the Mount Olympus neighborhood that I lived in. We had the Canyon Rim neighborhood, which is like on the south side of Parley's Canyon on the bench. It's a neighborhood that was built out in the 1950s, has a lot of what we call veterans homes on it, 900,000 square foot houses, really deep lots. A lot of that is where the redevelopment is happening. We had the East Millcreek neighborhood, which is, if you're familiar with that, it's a pretty Tony neighborhood mostly. It's mixed, but there's a lot of really nice neighborhoods in there. And then Millcreek proper, which is way different socioeconomically than the rest of our community in terms of just who lives there and their incomes of people. It's basically from Highland Drive west all the way to Jordan River. A lot more density, a lot more immigrants and refugees. We have a big refugee community there. We have an elementary school, 27 languages are spoken there. It's a challenge. It's a challenge. And one of the challenges for me was how do we unite these areas so that they feel that everybody belongs? And the people that I was part of when we decided to incorporate, we decided to include all those communities, to take up all the land that was left that was still unincorporated in this area, right? It was contiguous, because we would have more clout by being bigger. And actually, I tell people on the east side of my city all the time that think they're all hoity-toity, that bulk of the tax base in our community, both property tax value and sales tax value is on the west side, okay? You know, because it's more dense, so it's more valuable. But anyway, we've worked to build community, and some of the things we've done on that is we bought one of those inflatable movie projectors, and we cart that thing around to different parts of our community, to schools and parks, and make sure that we're showing movies every Friday night during the summer, from basically Father's Day until middle of August, and make sure we move that around so that everybody gets to see that. With respect to how we spend our public works dollars on street repairs and all that, we actually keep track of how much we have 4 council districts. How much are we spending in each one of those council districts? We want to make sure that we're treating everybody fairly, right? And there are always going to be situations where somebody has a greater need and we have to put more money into that project because it may cost more and all that. But we keep a tally of that and balance it out. And we've actually had to tell some communities, like, you know, I know you'd like to see new playground equipment at this park. We had to take it out actually because it wasn't safe any longer. Thanks for the deferred maintenance. It's not like me, but we had to tell that neighborhood, no, we did this project for you, so you're going to have to wait until we can get the funding for that, right? And so we build community that way, right? And we try to make sure everybody feels welcome. And we have on our city square now that we built, we have we have skate nights and festivals we have Hispanic skate night, we have, Civic Islander skate night. We had a refugee welcoming week, series of events. So we're trying really hard to make everybody feel welcome and everybody included. So that may be a challenge if you have different communities, to make sure you treat them fairly. But I think that there's strength in numbers on that, and that you can still build community that way.
So I hate to interrupt, but we've got about 2 minutes left. So last round of questions, and we'll have to move
Can
on.
you do us a favor before we ask any more questions? Can you give the mayor a round of applause? If you have a specific question, I'm sure he'll be glad to take you in the hall. If
Yeah.
you've got a general question, the best mayor and the worst mayor will give you a general.
So I've got 2 minutes before the sheriff's going to come up, but we have a question back here and a question up here. I think you were first.
Backing up to tax revenue for Millcreek. Do you have a transient occupancy tax, hotel bed tax?
So, yes, we have a, what is it called? It's a transient tax, that's what it is. It's a tax on short-term rental, stay nights, and we don't have any hotels or motels. So most of what we get on that is from Airbnbs or that. And we're working with the state actually to try to tighten that down, because there's a lot of those that aren't paying that kind of tax, but they do create a burden for a community, and extra policing, extra code enforcement. You probably have a fair amount of them up here with the ski resort and the rest of them. Okay.
Yeah.
And so, we have, places that are party houses and create parking problems and all that. So, that's what that tax offsets.
And how much is that tax?
I can't tell you what it is. It's set by the state what it is. Yeah. We only have the choice of enacting or not. We don't get to say what it is. For sure.
You just mentioned the 5th additional tax that you levy in addition to property tax. How many are there that are mixed into people with a cost of living?
Okay, so there's a stormwater utility fee. There's that franchise tax on utilities, gas, power. We haven't done cell phone yet, but we're thinking about that. And property tax, and then of course sales tax. So people don't think about sales tax, but so you pay, depending on where you are, we pay about 7.5% sales tax in Salt Lake Valley, and the city gets 1%. So that's always hard to explain. We don't get 1% of 7%. We get Of that 7%, the state gets 6.5%, and we get 1%.
Quick question, is Mount Olympus Improvement District under your supervision?
No, that's a separate district.
All right.
Mayor, thank you so much.
Thank you again.
Mayor, if you'll be so kind as to come back in that interim year from this November to next November, you can be our candidates college mentor for a year.
So one of the things that my background, I was a lawyer for 37 years, I guess, before I did this. And so, between my clients and even other lawyers, we competed against each other, right? The good thing about government is that people share ideas, there's no competition there. So if there's any way that we can help you, we're willing to do that, share documents, and frankly, to get to the point where you're gonna incorporate, if you want to, I'm happy to give you like our notice of boundary change and all that. Anything that we can help you with, we're more than happy to share.
Perfect. Thank you so much. The sheriff, the floor is yours.
Thank you. First, just want to express my appreciation to everyone in here that's allowing me to be your sheriff. I enjoy working for you, and I enjoy you letting me be in charge of your office. It means a lot. We've had a lot of growth, a lot of changes in the past. The mayor was talking about, we call it the wage war. Some people say it's a budget increase or something changed within law enforcement, but he's right about 40%. Wages increased, and in fact, your agency is taking one from me. And it's not a poaching thing, but it's hard to live in the state with the costs, and he's a good officer, good deputy. We did some comparison. He's going down to unified for about $15,000 more a year. This is what we're competing. So today, I want to present with you one thing that I enjoy about being elected. I don't reach for taxes. Other elected. And so so I'm going to share some information that I've learned. I've been in a small police department as a chief. I've seen both sides. I can fight and tell you why you should have your own police department. I can tell you why you should stay with the sheriff's office or do something else. I'll be very candid with you tonight. I just want to ask you a couple questions before we go. Are you okay if I do my presentation, then ask questions? Or would you like to just go ask questions as we go along?
Please, do your presentation.
Okay.
It's a tough audience.
Yes.
Do your presentation.
Okay, just before I start, this is my code for him to switch. But I've been doing this 27 years. I started with Weaver County in '97 as a bailiff. And I figured I needed to do better. I needed to better myself, family law. So I moved to Missouri, and I was a marshal there for the state for 4 years. While I was there, I got my criminal justice degree. Came back home. I worked for Clearfield City, 32-man department. It'll be key for later. And I was there for about 14 years. And then I put in for chief of police in Perry City, which is a city of about, I think they're 5,500 right now. Where Maddox is, and technically it's where the Walmart is. And then I was elected in 18 and started serving in 19 as sheriff. So I went from state agents or sheriff, state agency, thousands of people to Clearfield City of 32, Perry City to 5. Now they're about 365. So I've seen a lot, and I want to present to you. So we're going to roll with it. I will tell you what I don't know. I'll tell you what I think, but I'll also tell you what I do know tonight. So this is a presentation I put together. We've done presentations to other cities. There's been cities that have wanted to leave the sheriff's office. There are cities that have wanted to come in. And I will share the numbers that I do have with you and to give you a feel. And so my whole goal tonight is to help you be so much more informed when it comes to election day. And most importantly, my first priority is public safety. I don't care what a lot of those political elected officials say, right? I butt heads with our commissioners. I have a lot of frustration. And it comes down to a lot of things, but they are not my boss. We're all the elected officials county, we're equal. Sometimes they think they are, but they're not. But my boss says, are in this room, and I will not forget that. So the information that we made our decision on comes from pieces of the study that you had, sir. So one of the challenges that the incorporation has is the size. And I looked through it yesterday and the day before. I couldn't find the square mile or square feet or whatever, but I've heard of the paper that's 2.5 times, almost more than twice the size of Ogden. So we have a logistics challenge when it comes to law enforcement, right? Next. Thank you. So currently, give or take, we're about 365 people in the sheriff's office. That's a lot of people, right? And if anybody wants to ask, this is kind of funny, but it's true. My biggest headache is not crime. It's not coming up here or there dealing with it. It's staff and staffing. And it's tough. They're human. We're not perfect. We do our best. We make mistakes.
Sheriff, can I ask you to stand over here so that the mic can pick you up for the folks on Zoom?
Sure, recording. Yes.
Yes, thank you. All right.
I want to make sure I'm out of their view. Is this okay?
Yeah.
Okay, next one. Okay, so this is key. So we have multiple budgets in the sheriff's office. There's general fund, and then there's, ongoing money and one-time money. You guys, I'm pretty sure you're familiar with that. But how I get our money is broken down into the general fund. All the people up there in black, that's paid from general fund money. General fund money, as you probably know, comes from your property tax, which, if I understand correctly, that won't change if you incorporate, okay? And this is what I'm not sure, that's why I'm asking you. The blue is what contract cities. So we contract with 8 cities. This is where I want to make sure we're clear. Plain City, Far West, Marriott, Slaterville, Upper, West Haven, Uinta, Huntsville, and Washington Terrace contract. It's the mayor's responsibility to have law enforcement. Either they get their own agency or in this case, they contract with us. And I hope you're staying here because I got a couple of questions for you to find. It's good. So anyway, so if you guys create your own city, you will become a contract city to pay your portion to this pool. Okay. All right. Next slide. So because I'm elected, because the state law, Title 10 or Title 17 mandates that I have a jail. It's one of the mandates. So that's where I am paid for, is through general fund. Contract cities do not pay your service that's in black. So in transparency, there is a huge benefit for contracting because there's things that you're going to get that you don't pay for in that respected area, right? On a direct payment, right? So I had 3 chiefs. One of them's the enforcement, and because, well, I'll give it to the other stuff here in a minute. Let's go to the next one. So this is the size. This is what you get when you include corrections. That's how many captains, how many lieutenants, sergeants, and how they're broken out, managers. So you benefit from the whole thing. And we'll get into that more later. Next slide. Okay, this is where, speaking candidly, where it's a better deal to contract or do a unified or something, right? When I was in Perry City, we had 5 or 6 officers. I eventually got to have a full-time investigator. Because of his caseload, because of his training as one man, he's limited to property crimes and maybe some electronic storage detection and some gang training. That's all I could do. But because I have this many detectives, it allows us to branch out with all this type of training. right? So what crimes that are huge, that don't happen a lot, but they do too much, is child sex crimes. Most police agencies of a smaller nature do not have that specific training. There's a lot of agencies that do not have it, and when they need it, guess who they call? They call the sheriff's office. We have it, right? Elder abuse crimes, and I don't think that's on there. We're very diversified, and we have a lot of things that we can serve and help with, okay? Next slide. Now we're gonna go into training. So when you guys see one of my deputies one of your deputies come serve you, you think, what do I got? All you see is a uniform. But because of our size, again, we have a lot of them that are instructors in specific areas. You have a small agency, you depend on someone else to provide your training. And we do a lot of it in-house, which saves. Next one. Currently, these are just some extra things we have, and when you see like these numbers, we don't have 13 motorcycles, but we have 13 trained individuals that ride motorcycles. 4 accident reconstruction specialists. That's another thing. It takes a lot of training, and a lot of small agencies don't have that. And like North Ogden, where I live, has a 20, 21, 22 man department, and sometimes they call us to help them with specialty things. And a lot of other agencies. Ogden is a really good size. They have a whole lot. They rarely call us. However, when there's a shooting or some real big deal, we'll come in, we'll take calls for them, we'll help them, some of our specialties, so we work together really well. All right, next one. Here's some more specialties, just for you to look at and see. This is what you get in the sheriff's office. We do a lot of training. The bottom one on the right, it's a class from some wonderful people. It's primary for females. It's rape, aggression, defense. We host training to the public, sometimes no charge, and sometimes there is a fee for the class. All right, more specialties that are listed on there. There's something that when I ran the first time is I'm very conscious of costs. And any of you guys know about budgeting. I practice, and I'm the only one in the county that does this. It's called zero-based budgeting. And those, thank you. You know what it is, you know what it is, but there's some that a lot of people don't. So every year we have budget, I tell my staff, you cut first, then you build the budget. When I first got into office, we had 15 or 20 fax machines. Who faxes anymore? Each fax had a line. So you can imagine what we were paying a month to have fax machines. We narrowed it down to 1, right? So these are some things that we do as an example. And then VIPs, what I was getting to VIPs is, what is the best law enforcement agency? There was a lady over here somewhere that asked about community investment. If you say anywhere, you create a city, what kind of investment? This has been good in some cities, not so well in others. But they're volunteers in police service. And what they do is they literally go out and patrol. They don't take calls, but they're the eyes and ears. And we've seen crime reduce a little bit. People slow down when they see this truck that says VIPs on it, has a light bar on it. They don't patrol, they don't carry a gun, they don't go out and do any of that. They're just an image. And it works very well. So we've seen it work in some, but not in others. This is a picture of the detective team. So this was about 4.5 years ago. We had a serious case. You can see about 3/4 of our detectives. There's a county attorney sitting on the back seat. The guy with the glasses on the sofa. At one time we had a dog that we called it the porn dog. Yeah, what is that? It's crazy. It's a dog that could smell electronics. So like a thumb drive, if you've got some naughty pictures on there, children, that's how he had a dog that could sniff out electronic cell phones. It's amazing. And the dog's name was Earl, U-R-L. Anyway, fantastic resources. School resource officers, this is key, right? When you're seeing this size, I'm trying to impress you with some stuff, but it's not just to say, look at the size of this that we have, but when you have this many, there's a lot of communication. right? Agencies like Pleasant View, they have one school resource officer. And sometimes they isolate themselves. But when we have all these other schools, we get to communicate our school resource side, hey, what's going on in your school, what's going on, who's fighting, what's the trend. So there's a benefit to it. So we just picked up 2 new schools. You guys probably know Westfield out there in West Weaver, and then we picked up Mountain View Mavericks. And and we have 20 elementary schools. And Snowcrest is on there too, as you know. Next one. All right, another thing that we have is we have 6 dogs. That's a lot of sharp teeth. One of them is, I can't remember the name, but its nickname is Satan, because it's a new dog and it's bit the handler in the face. It's a good dog. It just is. It just takes time. The dog in the lower left is a bomb dog. We just got him 2 years ago. So, if there's events up here and if you got a bomb scare, we have a bomb dog. Right. Next slide. Here's some more how diversified we work with the Marshal's Office, the Child Exploitation Task Force with Department of Justice, and then we have ICAC, International Crimes Against Children, that we work with the Attorney General's Office. Much like the mayor, Unified is heavily involved in all this, and I know he has seen the benefits to working with these other agencies. Excellent. IT. This is one thing that's key when these agencies that want to break off on their own, and when the guidance come back and forth. But there's these ancillary services that some people don't plan for when they want their own police department. So you think, I got an IT, and when I was at Perry City, we had a part-time IT guy. This was so frustrating because when you're on the road, you're patrolling, your computer goes down, you had to wait 2 or 3 days when the part-timer's there. We have 7, 3 of them in-house full-time, and the other 4 are with the county. So even though the county has IT, it helps augment some of these things. I have 365 people. There's a lot of computers, laptops, and technology that's in there.
You notice that the IT geeks didn't want their picture taken, so they're not actually in there.
They're not there. All right, CSI, this is kind of a metro style. It's under our umbrella. So if you create your own agency, you're going to have your police costs. If you want CSI, that's a separate cost. It runs on their own, even though we pay into CSI, but it's again under our umbrella, and it's all divided up. And so the county or the cities now, it's all included in their costs. So, okay. Next one. For services fleet. Another thing when you get into a city, there's these other ideas of who's going to run your fleet. Make sure the oil's changed. One of the challenges that I had at Perry is back to my computer. Either we waited for the guy or we had to go find him and have him fix it. With the vehicles, we had to do our own oil changes. Do we pay them overtime for the officers to do their oil change? It didn't work out because we didn't have a lot of money. So we did it while on duty. So you're getting your car fixed or oil changed, an hour maybe, if it's really fast, maybe 2. And this is where we always get criticized. Why can't you guys be out on the road instead of sitting there doing this and that? So a lot of times our vehicles with the shops, we get them in, we're literally on the lift, they do it, wire it, and then we go at it, but we already have 6 or 10 out on patrol anyway. All right, next one. Go back. So those 3 ladies, they're the support service for all the enforcement. You'll have to include someone who processes your tickets and make sure your reports, because most of our guys, they're good, they're smart, but when they type, right? So thank goodness we have Microsoft Word to help with their spelling, that they make sure that the finished product is proper and in order, and you've got to have those. If we lost 10 or 20 staff, it would remain the same. If we gained 10 or 20, it would stay the same. But if we go more than that, we'd have to hire a 4th. So again, for a city small, you hire part-time, quarter-time, full-time. Those are things you got to think through. All right, next one. Motors, I already showed you that. Or the next one. So this is where another benefit that we have. All this, we have millions of dollars of equipment in our warehouse. And so when something happens, it's our people that typically get it first, and it's our people that are trained in it. And all this comes with this. If you're another city, sure you have access to it. It's a phone call and we'll get it out to you and so forth. So I want to make sure that's clear. It looks like we have it, it's only ours. It's not. But it goes back to that communication component, right? It's under our umbrella. We manage it, we keep them going, and we get a lot. That's the one. It's you see the back end of it. But that's the crime scene mobile command, and then the other two, it's the same one. That's our main mobile command. All right, excellent. Just a fancy picture of what I just showed you. This was you guys remember Officer Fly Day back in 20 that got shot in Ogden. That was a terrible day. Next one. So why do I have a picture of what I've already shown you with 10 people? None of my deputies out on the road run this thing. This is where our jail staff contributes to the function of the command staff. When it's called out, we have jail staff operate it. Right? Next one. We have 6 chaplains. Some people think that's not a big deal. It's been a huge benefit. These are for our deputies, not necessarily the inmates in the facility. We have a separate group for that. The other thing that you'll want to consider if you do your own agency, a victims advocate. Those are absolutely key. You've got to have a victims advocate for successful, for a crime where there's a victim involved, because they need your guidance, they need your resources, they need what to do. Sometimes your victims have nobody. You can imagine a badder situation, domestic violence, and there's threats and all this stuff. You need a victims advocate. Right. Next one. Grammar clerk. Oh boy. 6 years ago, we averaged 200 grammar requests. I just lost the term. Records report. It's called the grammar system, right? So now we get probably around 400 to 500 a month. So why the big jump, right? Well, the mayor illustrated earlier about some of the challenges from 2020 where, let's defund the cops. There's a sour thing out there. Now it's let's confront law enforcement. Let's challenge them. I think I got dirt on them. So people just flood us because they think there's something hiding in our reports. We inundated. We've had to increase staffing to handle grammar requests. You will have that, and probably not the level we have, but you will have a lot of record requests. Human resources, not directly my office, but that's part of that share with the county. Use of force, we have, anytime there's a critical incident that happens, we have staff that review it and make sure we hold ourselves accountable. We screwed up, we'll own it. If we did great, they should be recognized. Internal affairs. This is another deal that's very critical. It's holding our staff, our deputies accountable. You have an investigation, there's a complaint. Small agencies, what they do is they'll assign it to a sergeant to do it or a lieutenant. But again, that's time that they could be doing something else. When you go with a larger agency, I get nobody likes big government. I don't like it either. But in some cases, bigger is better. And that's what I'm trying to illustrate here. But by all means, we're not 1,000 or 10,000 man agency. There's a median there. Right, next. So I heard a question earlier about what does a city attorney have, what responsibility to get sued. We have that many, 14. A lot of prosecutors, civil counties, it seems to be always in some sort of a lawsuit. When I came into the sheriff's office, 10 of the 12 current lawsuits were all because an inmate was not getting the care that he thought he should, the medical care he should. We're constantly sued. So when you do create your own agency, there's something, one other thing you got to factor is your insurance. You guys know the difference between insuring your 16-year-old versus the 50-year-old. We have a lot of 16-year-olds we have to, figuratively speaking. So the mandate of the sheriff's office being insured, that insurance on a deputy law enforcement comes under that umbrella to where it saves a lot of money, especially for the contrast cities. All right, next one. This was a little out of order, but this is how many volunteers we have in police service. Those are the vehicles that they drive. I think Huntsville has one, and they use it dual purpose for their city staff use it, and then they use it for this. All right, search and rescue. There's probably some in here that are part of our search and rescue team. It's under the sheriff's office, one of the state mandates that I have to do. One of the key differences that we have versus a lot of other sheriff's office, we have such a great, we have a lieutenant, a sergeant, a corporal that run it. Most of them, it's either all volunteer based or they have a sergeant put over it. But our guys are so good at getting grants. We have such good equipment that we are the go-to. We have a 50-foot goose egg trailer that's a dive trailer. The up front is a boardroom, if you will, a command staff room. In the back half is we can pressurize our own tanks on scene. And we have just so, I mean, if you guys want, I'd love for you all to come tour our facility. It's really amazing to see. All right, next one. Professional standards and training. This is again goes difference between a larger agency. We have dedicated staff that ensure that the training's right, it's proper, it's updated. A lot of agencies it's handed off to somebody, or someone else to do, and there's success in that. Next one. In my office, this is our old training room. It holds about 36 people comfortably, 50 without tables. The lower picture, for a while, we had an ODR. It's called an officer's dining room. You're thinking, wow, where did the food come from? And I will tell you, not the jail. It is different food. And so part of our morale we encourage is it is the same vendor, but it was good food. But deputies could come in and get a hot meal for $2.
Donut shop?
No donut shop. I think that's a record I've gone on. This been a lot, 47 without a donut joke. All right, this is new. So here's where this may bother some people and some way, oh, this is cool. So this was paid for by one-time money, savings from the previous year. This is it was bid out originally before COVID at 1.74. It ended up being 2.4 million. You can imagine the cost, when the supplies. Some of you have been there. The north part of it, it's a new training facility. We can get up to between 120 to 200 people in there. And when you bring agencies together to train, like for a school active shooter, right? If you train just agency, you kind of get into this is the way we do it. But when you have an active shooter, everybody counts. You got to be on the same page with the signal, talk, and language and strategies. So we've opened this up, and we have people, agencies all over multiple counties and state come and train our facility. The back 3/4 of it is all warehouse. All that stuff that I showed you earlier. All right, drones, awesome. They are saving lives. We use them in search and rescue and also on patrol. We never patrol with drones. They're a response drone. You guys have probably seen our stuff about the drones. We literally are the leader in the United States in search and rescue with drones. All right, and that actually we have probably 15 drones by now. The latest one is not up here, but it's about the wingspan of a Mini Cooper. And it can lift 80 pounds. It's pretty impressive. All right, next one. More pictures. Honor Guard. This is so some people, small agency, they don't care, right? But when you have a death, an elected official, military guy, or something, this is just wonderful. Those that have been military can probably appreciate a little bit more, but it's wonderful. We have a whole bunch of those that, man, they're sharp looking. They look good. All right, public relations. Someone over here, I think it was you, sorry, I only know you by blue shirt, but you commented on how wonderful the mayor's website was. It is so important these days to communicate properly. Right now, as of 2 days ago, I pushed it out. The animal shelter is no longer in the sheriff's office. Should have never been. But when a dog dies in the shelter or something happens, that is the worst news in the world. It is shared and it's horrible. we have someone die in our jail, it gets very little media attention. And so why am I saying this? So when you get your own city, it is very important to have good media, public relations, absolutely. Right? Because they will always go to the mayor, they always go to somebody, where's this information? It's here. Make sure that stuff's available. I would never say spend a lot on it. I would say do it right. And it solves so many problems. When we have a death in a jail, in most agencies across, they kind of wait till it's discovered. We go out, I think it's called you go out early, you go out ugly, and you go out fast. Right? Because again, it's not my jail, it's yours, right? We tell the public, hey, this is what happened. You know, life-saving measures were included, and we let the public, and it's just, the problems go away so fast because we're not hiding anything, things happen. All right, next one. Oops. Oh, now you've done it.
Yeah, now I've done it.
So this was all during COVID when the hospitals were being overrun. So the law enforcement in Weaver County came together with the fire and said thank you to our nurses and doctors. This was all done by a drone. Pass this one. This is a recruitment video that we did a little while ago. Sure. Okay, don't hire my guy. Okay. Just kidding. Okay, so now we're gonna get into some numbers here. If you look at call type, several years ago, I had a council member and a mayor from North Ogden that said, hey, we're just thinking about having North Ogden join the sheriff's office because save money, right? And so this was not good because just to come out and share some information was interpreted as I'm trying to take over, conquer the world, and control everything. That's just wasn't the case. But what I did is I called every other mayor in the county and said, why do you not go to the sheriff's office? Because you can save a lot of money. Can anybody guess what the number one answers were? Consistently. Image and control. Okay, so don't misunderstand some of my words as critical, rather this is their response. Image and control. And maybe identity was another one because they want their cars to say their city on it, or their trucks, because they want to tell their chief and their officers what to do. Okay, I get it, right? And so we broke down some calls. This was just where we're at. You'll notice that Weaver County, that includes unincorporated. Unincorporated Weaver County takes about 20% of our call volume. Right now, we're averaging 4,000 to 5,000 calls a month. We're busy. All right, next one. Here's another breakdown. Initiated calls. This is just to, so the reason I'm showing this mainly is not to get lost in these numbers, but we truly do full service. So if you contract with us, we are your police department. Whatever you want, you got it. It's yours. There's no, it's our way or the highway. We have lieutenants assigned to every city, and they are their chief. And if you want something done, we get it done, right? It's just, it works out really well. Okay, so here's a breakdown, and I want to explain some of these numbers. Right now, in unincorporated and the contract cities, we serve, I think the number is a little more, that's about 80,000 people we serve. And then 31 officers. So remember I showed you the picture of the blue and the black? County funds of the property tax pays for 31 of the 75 deputies. Those 31 are the backup and support to all the other cities that have police departments. And they're the backup to the contract cities that contribute. So people say, why are we paying for that? Because the county sheriff has an obligation when, let's say, some extreme example, a mayor just says, fire and everything police department, who's going to take over? Well, that's my job, right? And so there's the 31 that's paid out of general funding. It does not come out of the money for the contract cities, but those 31 work in the contract cities and unincorporated, okay? The 44 are paid for by the contract cities. And then there's VIPs, and those are the cities we supervise. Now, this is what people, I get asked all the time. What does it cost Weaver County for one officer? $169,484. That's this year. We figured this number at the end of last year. This is what we projected. When I did North Ogden's, our number was $132,000 per deputy. That's how the mayor said how much it's gone up 40% in the last few years. That's because these wage wars, right? Everyone wants to pay, so everyone's fighting to go up. It's just extreme. It's gone off the charts with costs, right? When I was chief in Perry 6.5 years ago, I was $30 an hour. Highway Patrol just opened up starting wage, $34. Right out of the academy. Okay. Another thing that's when I was talking with North Ogden, we also have another city out there that flirts with the idea every couple of years that they can do it cheaper and they want their own, they want control. So they did a large survey a couple of years ago. In the survey, 85% of those that responded to the survey liked, somewhat liked, really liked Weaver County Sheriff's Office. And they talked about having their own police department. I got it here earlier, but it was around 1.6 or 1.7 million dollars that they pay us every year. 20,000, 22,000 residents. Their cost to go on their own ongoing was 3.5. 1.6 to 3.5. North Ogden's at the time was 2.7 or 2.9 million ongoing. We would have come in at 1.5. That's a lot of money, right? But this is where we get into the argument, which is better, which is all that. So we'll keep going. The costs that are included when you pay that 169 is you got the department costs for forces, which include human resources. So if you decide you get your city all set and you say, all right, we're going to have a police department. We think we need 10. Let's just say it's 10. Please don't forget, you're going to have to add someone who's going to take care of it. There's the HR, right? There's banking fees, the legal, the treasurer, the purchasing. There's costs. When you look at police budgets across, and if you go through them, a lot of them do not include human resource costs, right? Our human resources would probably be 1 or 2 less if they didn't have the sheriff's office. See the economy of scale I'm trying to paint? So those are key things, right? So know that, but that's all built in the 169. All right, next one. So this is the, I took this out of my old PowerPoint presentation. So Weaver County on the bottom, North Ogden on the top. So their budget in 2013 was 1.67, then it went to 2.7. You see a 61% increase. You go to the sheriff's office in 2013, you're almost 9 million to 11.
That's a lot more.
It is. It's economies of scale, but I want to be very clear on a couple of things to say why is it this and why is it that, right? This is where we the people get to choose, right? So I'll get to that. Next slide. This is North Ogden's current budget they just passed. Some key things. If you look down at the bottom, it's 4.5 million now, 2.7 to 4.5 in 3 or 4 years, right? That's because of this wage war that we're in, right? Inflation. But if you look at salaries, 2 million of it, and then the other one is employee benefits is 1.2. The next biggest one is the vehicles, which is $744,000. Those are right costs. And then in here, what you don't see in their budget are those things like HR and some of these other ancillary, the support, right? So the purpose of me sharing this with you is when you make that decision, if you are incorporated, don't just stop at this amount. This affects that affects all these things. And I know this group by being here tonight is going to do that because you guys are here because you want to know if you're going to vote yay or nay, right? You're doing your homework. I wish more people did their homework like you guys are. Thank you. All right. Perry City, real quick. I was chief in 2016, and the mayor there, she says, Ryan, if you don't get this department squared away, you'll be fired, and we're going to contract with Box Elder County. And then I said, do you want it done your way or the right way? Not an arrogant, but it was a partnership of the right way with a partnership. She said, I want a partnership. I was the 4th person of a full-time employment, and we had a whole bunch of part-timers. Part-timers are not worth it in law enforcement because we all have our different policies, procedures, the way of operation. We generally do the same thing, but it just didn't work out. So we built up to 6 full-time, got rid of the part-timers. Now I think they got 7 or 8 right now. But my budget when I started was $584,000. Population of 5,000. They are, where'd it go? Right where my shadow is. Now they're 1.5 million. Right? It's a lot of money. Okay. For a fit 5,000. But that's what the city wants. And that's okay. North Ogden didn't want to come with us. That's okay. That was their choice. This is what I'm trying to emphasize, right? It's what you guys want. All right, next one. Not the one I wanted to show. Keep going, keep going. So I brought a couple extra slides. Next one. Just in case I had questions, because I've heard from a lot of you here. And so I'm prepared, I think. So but we'll hit that in the end. Okay, this is our current price sheet for the contract cities. This is where you guys can say, okay, if we go with the county, this is what it's going to cost. Here's what everyone else is paying for. So if you go up to the top, we have everyone's population. Far west is 10%. You go up and you go all the way across, their population is 8,000. And what's the population for Incorporated?
7,000.
7,000. So Plain City, I think, is pretty close to that. No, Marriott Slater. No, wait. So I'm in the wrong column.
Plain City.
Plain City. Thank you. Plain City is 8,000, and you can see what their costs are on the picture of all this, right? So they're. I don't have my glasses on. Sorry. Can anybody see it? What? What are we looking for? The costs. So if you go over to the side, you see how we break it down. You see population on the very right over here. It calls for service. So we determine what your population is and how many calls, and that's what the total cost is. Right?
Total,
So, yeah, so down here, thank you. I was looking around column. So that's what they're paying this year. Right? So if you were to put in there, you'd be right around Plain City, is what I heard. Right? So that's about what your cost would be right now. If you want your own police agency, there's a lot of work that's gonna go to figure out what you do, because, so this is where go to the next one, and I might have you come back. Yeah, go back to this one. Thank you. So let me tell you how the contracts work, and this is probably one of the pinnacle moments. So Sheriff Thompson before me, and then him and Slater and Dearden, when they contracted with these contract cities, as we call them, it was a handshake deal. Hey, come on, just pay us this much. Everything was okay. And the county was paying huge amount of that. So you had city managers and mayors from other cities that finally got word of this and say, this is absolutely BS. You are subsidizing tax fund, general fund money for these, to police these cities. And they were right. They should pay their own freight, right? We all should, right? So what they did is the sheriff, Thompson, had to go back and say, hey, you gotta pay your full freight, no more good deals, because you know, you're a city, this population, there's a police department over here that's got, the city's got their own place, they're paying this much, you guys gotta pay them. Guess what they all said? No. So they had to come to an agreement. And the agreement was to pay for a service. You'll hear people say, well, you should have one officer per 1,000. They'll say that's a rule of thumb. That doesn't work. And you go to New York, I think it's 2 or 4 officers per 1,000. They have a high crime. It really should be based on call volume, right? Your needs. So if you do start, you're going to have some adjustment period. But we already have the data and the call volume, so it should be easy to determine what you guys decide to do on. And so what we do get now is they don't want to pay these cities, and there's a couple cities that be candid with you, they're paying in my butt. Some of their leaders are. Because they want $100 service, but they want to pay $10. It's true. It's family one, but right, the others are okay, they get it. And so they start saying, well, the sheriff doesn't do this, they don't have this. So last year, we added in our contract, we call it the a la carte. If you want to buy your own officer, have them in your city 24/7, or not 24/7, the shift, whatever, you can do that. But you have to pay for it. So what we do is we take all of our 8 contract cities and the unincorporated, we pull it. We treat it as one big city. That's where you save the money. And I get calls from Valley residents saying, you know, where's your deputies at? How come the response times are this and that? Well, the county commission controls that. I've tried to get more staff for a long time. It's just one of those challenges that I'm having. Right? But the cities, this is what they asked for. This is what they wanted. And we gave them the a la carte option. So when the contract came up, guess how many of the cities asked and got more deputies? Paid for them. None. So this is what's frustrating. So someone who's over public safety and you want to provide the best, but you know, they have to pay for it, but they don't want it. So they're okay with the services they're getting now. But what they don't tell the public is, hey, we're getting a really good deal, we're getting good service, we're not going to pay you. That's the truth. That's frustrating for me. It is. So anyway, this concludes my presentation. I am willing to stay here till 9, either here or in person, but whatever I can do to answer questions, but I will open it up to whatever. And I have one rule when asking me a question. You can ask me anything. Seriously.
So just to be clear, you're showing based off our call volume and population calculation, the year contract would be 614,000?
Roughly. So we made sure we were clear on estimate, or we put draft, because, you know, when the mayor was in here and he was talking about the borders, right? And who's paying taxes. Once you get everything wrapped up, and it's not, I can't see that fluctuating more than 10 or 20,000. Right?
Feasibility study. so.
Yeah, it's pretty spot on, right? You're gonna be about that. We're not gonna come in and say, new city, need $1 million. We're not gonna do that. So, anyway, next question.
I went out and looked at the Weaver County 2024 budget.
Yes,
Because I understand you're presenting your budget tomorrow afternoon.
I am.
So is it 12,711,000 that you're asking for 2025?
So we're asking for additional staff
Okay.
and we're asking for additional pay.
Rate of change, percentage standpoint?
We're at 75 on enforcement. And the reason I don't dwell on corrections, because it's the difference. It's just
the
enforcement.
sheriff line.
We had 80. And then when these budget cuts were going through or the inflation, we gave up positions to help pay higher wages to the other staff.
And then one of the first things the budget opened with was that your frontline staff was 22% non-filled at the beginning of this
Ish,
year.
yeah.
And all
It's so fluid, but
that.
yes.
Is that getting better? Are you?
Yes, we're seeing the trend going up, but Unified, that was here, we found out because one of our deputies going down there, they're down 35. So when we say down, so there's 29 sheriffs, and I know all of them, and we talk all the time. Some will say I'm down 3 or 4, but in that county, that's like us being down 15. So, right, it just depends on the percentage.
Right.
But it's not just Weber County. I talked to the chief of Ogden the other, they're down to 15, right? And so there's terms in law enforcement when you're down. To me, down is when if I got people in training and it's going on and they're being trained by a trainer, that's really not a full position. Or when they're in the academy. On paper, we're down like 12 or 13, something like that. But we've got 7 that were technically not filled because they're either in the academy or they're being trained or something. Yes. And the other thing that you should know is we get criticism from some of our local leaders. Why can't you just hire somebody? By the time you do the application, go to the academy, get on the road by yourself, you're talking 9 months to a year. Right? You just can't hire, so you just can't hire and go sell something. No offense to any salesman, don't mean like that, but you just can't do that because it's so technical. That's our challenge. And then, we train these people for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. They're great. And then they go down to somewhere else for $5 and $10 more. This is the challenge I have with our commissioners. It's very frustrating. I just don't think.
So the bottom line, the way I see it, bottom line is we're gonna get the same service that we have now from the sheriff's office.
It'll probably be a little bit more
Yeah,
because
But at least
you'll have
that.
a lieutenant assigned to you, to your
sure.
city,
Okay.
right? You'll see it a little bit different. Yeah, but it's the same service, but you'll have a little bit more, if that
And we're
makes
not
sense.
gonna pay any more than we're paying them. That's
Well,
what
I don't know if you're
I
gonna,
mean,
At the unincorporated,
yeah, so I did bring some slides. Go to the 3 that I said, I think back up, sorry. 2 more. So I got this a while ago. So if you read the top right, at the left is a breakdown of how property tax are distributed. This here is based on a value of home of 250,000. There is not, I know, but this is a percentage, right? And we all know there ain't no home up there, not even a shed. It's right? And so it lays it out and then it breaks it out. Here's the pie. Here's where the money's going. So the second slide in this group of 3, go forward. So there's where the money goes. So on that, so if your house is 500,000, see where it says 1.73, and there's a $41. So if you just move it up, your house worth 500, it's going to be 82, right? And then so forth. So, but the property taxes money the county keeps, that still stays with the county. So, but yeah, so that's where that comes from. And then the next slide is a description of this municipal services and then the countywide services. So I thought this would help. This is what the county gave me in preparation for this. Yes, sir.
You opened up talking about
logistical challenges we have due to the size of our incorporation there.
Yeah.
67. Do we currently have enough coverage from the sheriff's office, and will we have more?
That's up to you. So the thing I want to explain about the contract is cities said this is what they want and this is what we have given. And some of them complained and then we said, okay, well, if you want more, you can buy one essentially, and that one will be assigned to your city, specifically your city. You can figure out the time if you want 2, 3, or 4, we can get them for you. And you'll pay for it, right? And that's what you get. And so based on our data, so I believe in good law enforcement, good coverage. But the service that the people want, when I say the people, the elected officials and leaders of the cities and our county commission believe that this is enough. No, hell no. Be honest. It's frustrating.
The 614 number is basically what we currently have.
It's what you already have. Yes. Yes.
Which you don't think is enough.
No.
So if we want more,
It's another.
we can buy more.
Another 170,000. Now that's last, yeah. But I want to make it clear. By saying it's not enough, it's not that we can't do it. It's that the cities choose not to do it. But we can. We do anything we want. There's a phrase that former Chief Randy Watt used to say. It says, we can do anything. We can't do everything. It's true. It's a good question. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Sheriff Arbon, when you contract with the municipality to
Yes.
provide your services, you know, there's a certain amount of money, a certain amount of FTEs. Do you track that utilization so that, let's say at the end of a year, you can go back to that municipality and say, this was just right, or a little too much? Is there any way for you to do that?
So I'm not sure if this will answer your question, but it may. And if it doesn't, then clarify. So we provide a service, and what we do is our service is based on 75 deputies. If at the end of the year or during the year, we're functioning on 65, you get money back in that 10. Also, what I had another slide, I didn't draw it, but there hasn't been one contract city that's been charged extra for overtime. We've been doing law enforcement for 172 years. We've got it down pretty good, numbers and how things. So when you contract, we don't ever come back and say you need more money. If we do, it's in the budget for the next year. And it's up front, but we've never gone back and said you need more money. But if we're understaffing, we didn't use the money, it comes back. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And also, we do a quarterly meeting with all the mayors or city managers, and we tell them about crime, we tell them, we give them all, everything that's going down. What we anticipate is we're gonna raise the money up, we're gonna tell them 6 months before your fiscal year budget is due or approved. This guy, then you.
Two questions. One,
Yeah.
do you guys normally sign year contracts or the multi-year?
5 years.
Okay.
But you got it's either 30 or 60 days if you want to bail out.
Okay, and then, when you're talking about a la carte options, is inmate labor included in that, or is that something we get as part of the sheriff no matter what?
So inmate labor is a really difficult, this is not a non-answer. Can I save that towards the end? Because, yes, thank you. I'll tell you why exactly.
Doesn't the National Sheriff Association recommend 2 officers per 1,000?
So this is what I was talking about earlier. There's, it can be a recommendation, but it's kind of a rule of thumb that you go to every city has a different dynamic. I'll give you an example. Utah County has almost 700,000 residents. We have 270. We have almost the exact amount of jail beds as they do. Right? It's just different.
But a national recommendation is based on studies.
They're averages.
What's that?
They're averages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With a national
Yes.
evaluation over decades.
Yes.
To arrive at that number. And I know like New York has 4 police officers per 1,000.
Chicago is different than.
But
They're in Salt Lake.
Is all through the sheriff's deputies per thousand is the recommended number based on research.
Yes, but those are averages. But if you take my county and other counties, we'll probably average out to be two. I mean, if you're asking me what I think we should have, I think we should have,
That's what I was gonna say, roughly from
I
that
think-
614, what would it be increased for what you think?
honestly, I think to be proper, I think we're talking 120. That's honest.
Double.
It is, almost double, yes. Right? I know when you guys call and say, why does it take so long? You guys know how long it drives it takes to drive from Silvestrini to Powder Mountain. It's about 40 minutes, right? And then with the city you're proposing, that's a long way, right? And then it's not a straight line. So you will want to decide if you want, more, or this is enough, right? That's your choice, right? We want you to be able to choose.
What are the typical kinds of calls that you get from the valley? Like what, if you, I don't know if you graph it out or whatever, but generally speaking, what types of calls, like?
The number one call I get mostly is harassment, Actually, Tina's very good at keeping me on my toes. I appreciate it. She brings up the concerns of the valley and we address it. But it's different for even the cities, it's different. But right now, the hot thing right now is criminal mischief, right? People destroying stuff. That's one of the top ones. You hear about the murders, the homicides, one can overshadow everything else. Domestic violence is still a problem. Juvenile behavior is still a problem. Up here, it's
We're in the valley.
in general, right? Up in the valley, it's generally the people from outside. We hear a lot about the renters. VRBOs, right? So that's, but when that gets so much press, it sometimes overrides what the real problem is, right? Trespassing, you guys are probably the best community that we get to work with as far as the least amount of crime.
50,000 foot level for schools. Huntsville doesn't have a school, they get billed. Eden incorporated area is gonna have 2 schools. Nobody goes to Huntsville schools. Everybody in the valley, everybody in the new city goes to elementary school here. Everybody goes to junior high here, and nobody goes to high school. So at the 50,000 foot level, does North Ogden pay the high school problem? Because the kids go to school there, and then, I'm just trying to figure out.
Pleasantview takes care of Weaver.
Okay,
North Ogden takes care of North Ogden Junior High.
okay.
We have Snowcrest, right? And then we do a little bit with the elementary school. But so we pull our service, right? So there may be a crisis in one city and nothing going on and we need resources, it's like the ocean waves, it moves over there, right? There's a problem up here, then all those resources come up here to help you. It's like we're all one big city. That's where we save the money. And that's where, to answer that question, it moves as it's needed.
Okay, then from the 50,000 foot level, take it to the ground level. Summer parking on the roads around the reservoir.
Yeah. So in the cities that I've been in, you could do ordinances to address that. Like county has its own, state has its own, but if you guys want to create something specific for you, you could do that, and that's going to be either the civilian cops that go.
There you go. The city can have their own parking enforcement.
Yeah, so they're I'm at a loss, but you guys know what I'm talking about. You want to go down and make sure the dog's on the leash, make sure your grass is this high. Code enforcement, thank you. Yeah, code enforcement can do that. That's part of the reason this was created too. They can go out.
Good.
To follow up on the schools, if the county, we won't have the schools, so the county would still be paying for officers at the junior high.
They're doing it now.
Right.
Yes,
So we would not pick up that cost if we incorporated as a city.
you do. It's all pooled together, right? So if I need this many officers, So the 31 the county pays out of the general fund is pooled with this, right? And the 44, when you guys come on, there's, you know, it'll just be pulled together. So it's already being paid for.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Because we incorporate, we're not doubling the services or the costs.
No, what you saw is what you're gonna get, which
Yeah.
includes all of that.
Yeah.
It's not an à la carte.
No, if you want more than that. So if you incorporated today and we started tomorrow, nothing would change.
Yeah.
Just you'd be paying that. If you come out of the taxes and go to your city, and that's what we cover, and all the service would not change. Unless you want.
You mentioned one of the benefits of contract versus current status is we essentially have a lieutenant assigned to
Mhm.
us who is equivalent to the chief. How does that work with
So
that?
he comes to your council meetings, he or she comes to your staff meetings. What are your needs? What are the challenges? You'll have someone like anyone in here will call the mayor and say, hey, we got a problem. Yep, we'll deal with it. They will talk to the lieutenant and it's disseminated, right? The other thing that I forgot to mention that is if there's a shooting, right? And it's what, say an officer shot somebody, guess where they're gonna protest? My office, not you, right? Those are some of those other benefits. Back to North Ogden, they also included to build a police facility. Started out at 7 or 9 million, I think it ended up being 14, right? And so if you look at that, you have to have a building, you have to have an interview room, you have to have places for detectives, you have to have all these things, and they're expensive, right? They just are. So with the sheriff's office, we're all consolidated, it's all there. Some cities have a room in an area for the deputies to come eat lunch and hang out, which is cool, right? So, you know, earlier I talked to you about control and identity. I can tell you unequivocally that all these cities that have been with us, at the end of the day, the citizens love what the sheriff's office does. They really do. Politics come in and we become a tool or a weapon for something which I think is wrong. It never should be. If you want your own police department, then you have a responsibility to tell your public the truth. And I've seen it where it's not been told the truth. And so when I get involved, they get mad. Right? And it's the truth. And so that's why I want to make sure you guys get the right information. And I want to make it clear too, I'm not here for incorporation, I'm not here against it. I want you guys to make the best public safety choice. That's the bottom line.
Great presentation, give it a round of applause.